We pick up the interview after the discussion we had last week about the Red X Special and his decision to sell that car and head off to Europe. That particular car, I think you then sold to Stan Jones, Alan Jones's father. And when you went to England, I read somewhere that you felt that had you taken that car with you to England,
yeah. Well,
things could have been different.
That was my first really big mistake.
Mm.
I didn't take that car to England. If I'd taken that car to England, I'd have been winning races as soon as I got there. But Peter Whitehead, who was out in New Zealand racing, talked me into buying the car that he had, which was a Cooper Alta, and he was giving me the big message that now this is an overhead cam engine, a proper racing engine. The Bristol engine is not a proper racing engine. You know, be better off with this car.
Mm.
And like a fool, I listened to him. And I sold my car to Stan Jones, as he said, and went off to England thinking I'm going to have a fantastic car when I get there.
Mm.
And when I got there, I went and had a look at this motor car. My heart just dropped to the floor. I could not believe I could sold such a car.
Mm.
And, you know, I'd had it then. I'd already sold the other car. And I had to try and do something with that.
Mm.
And the engine was absolutely, you know, virtually had it really, because I went to drain the water out of it and the water wouldn't come out because the block was full of cami wells.
Mm.
And, you know, the whole car actually was just absolutely unsuitable.
Mm.
And so that really put me back. But luckily I got in with John Cooper, because I had the Cooper Bristol out here. I went to have a look and see where the Cooper Bristol was made.
Mm.
And I got on very well with John, and eventually he gave me a job there for the first year. And he let me build a motor car during the year. And what I did, I took one of their... actually, he said to me, he said, look, if you want to build a motor car, there's the workshop, go and build one. Because I had some ideas. So I did. I went and I got the little sports car I had there and stretched the chassis and went up and got a Cooper Bristol engine and put a Bristol engine in the back instead of the front.
Mm.
And that was really the first rear engine racing car, if you like, that Coopers had. You know, they had little sports cars and things and 500s and that, but not proper racing cars.
Mm.
So I built really the first proper racing car they had. And I had run it a couple of times in England, didn't do too bad with it. And then I took it out to Australia and won the Australian Grand Prix with it.
Mm.
And then sold that, and that financed me to come back the next year.
My special guest on Motor Talk this week is Sir Jack Brabham. So, Jack, looking at the championship years, what's your fondest thoughts of that period, with the 2 championship wins initially, but then in '66, which was really the dominant year?
Yeah, that was the year, as far as I was concerned, actually. My engineering side, if you like, really led me in there because when I joined Coopers, I was able to help them a lot, and it wasn't long before we had the Formula 1 Cooper running, and Coventry Climax made us a special engine for it, 2.5 litre engine, and went out and won the championship in '59. Now that was fantastic. But then the next year we went out and done it again. We built a new car and that was pretty good. But then of course Coopers didn't seem to be going anywhere. I wanted to go further than what they did, and so I had a friend out here in Australia, named Ron Tornack, who was a pretty good designer himself, and we'd been building cars here together beforehand. So I took him into coming over, and we started a company and build racing cars over there, which we did.
Highly successfully.
Yeah.
And Ron's your association with Ron really was back in Speedway days, as far back as that, wasn't it?
Yeah. He used to give me a bit of hand in the Speedway as well as the road racing when I started. So I knew he had the background that we wanted to have in England, so it turned out a very good combination. And then, of course, getting in tow with Repco, and they built the engine for the 3-litre Formula. The rest is history with it. It was very successful.
So, Jack, was that hard to convince Repco? And I'm thinking this from a time when the world of Formula One had probably appeared a long way from Australian shores. Was that a hard thing to convince Repco to do?
Luckily, I knew quite a few of the people in Repco, and when we were racing out here before I went over there, I had them do work for me and bought a lot of stuff off them, and had a good association anyway. So the fact that I had a good association, I was able to go and talk to them. And the managing director, who I thought we'll have to get over the top of him first.
It's always the first trick.
Yeah. And much to my surprise, he was quite keen on the idea. Right? So then I explained to him how I think the engine should be built, because to build an engine from scratch was going to take a long time. So I gave him the idea of having an Oswald block, which is an aluminium V8 block. We start with that for a start, and make cylinder heads for it and that sort of thing. And then he got Phil Irving involved.
Yep.
And Phil Irving done the drawings of the cylinder heads and everything, and Repco made it. And within 12 months we had an engine. And not only did we have an engine, we had and won quite a few of the first Grand Prix, and won the championship in '66, which was just as big a surprise to me as anybody. It just shows, that it's a team of people and planning that gets you there. Getting the right people behind you, and luckily had Repco to go to, put it all together, we won the championship.
And of course, the most amazing thing about that win was that it was your car, your engineering, you were the driver. That's never been done before. Highly unlikely that it'll ever be done again. That must give you an enormous sense of pride.
Yeah, it did actually. It was the pinnacle of my racing, really, because that was an achievement, and driving was just incidental.
Mm-hmm.
We did that as well.
It was the